Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about the update for my Explody Ballista Falconer for day 1, day 2. So going into this, I knew the build would be good, or at least serviceable. That's why I made a video about it. But I didn't quite understand just how crazy this build performs. The AoE you're getting on this build is absolutely unethical, and is something that I would usually only see in Path of Exile. And when it comes to bossing, which I actually thought would be pretty damn painful, it's not that bad. It's definitely nothing to write home about, but you can do the stuff you want to do. And sure, you're never gonna speed farm Jorah 4, but there's a lot of other builds that do that better anyways. When it comes to clear, just the amount of AoE means that, sure, you can just run to the objective anyways, but the amount of mobs you kill along the way means you get a lot of extra stabilization along the way, which makes you just progress way faster. But there was also some questions from viewers who haven't really played this build before and didn't really know how it works. Maybe they haven't watched the first video. In general, I will kind of compile a lot of frequently asked questions in this video. First things first, I actually imported all my current gear in the Maxwell planner. Just so you know, that doesn't mean that that's something you have to strive for. I'm going to go over it in a second. That's just my current gear. It's pretty damn scuffed. As you can see right here, I have a leather mask on, right? It is what it is. And my cradle is absolutely garbage. And my idols are garbage. My blessings are not farmed. But this is what I currently have, just so you can kind of get a picture of everything. Now, some of the frequently asked questions we're going to talk about before, then I'll go through the gear. When do you respec? I was pretty much on the money. I actually tried respecking very early at like level 30 something. And it was okay, but it was not fancy whatsoever. I think it was like 42 actually. It was okay, but I did kind of miss my bleed setup because single target was very painful. And especially when you're at Lagon in chapter 8, I think, you're going to have kind of a problem. So whatever I said in the first video still holds. You should probably wait until like level 55 to 60. You need 13 skill points in Ballista and then also around about 60 dex to make it work. The second biggest question I got was what damage mods actually scale us. So Ballista is a minion, so every sort of increased damage that you have does not affect the Ballista unless you make it with some kind of effect. Dexterity is different. Dexterity is the main stat of the skill. Dexterity scales it quite well. Not just does it give it a lot of increased damage, it also gives you more damage and increased AoE. So without dexterity, there's no build. In game, I'm currently sitting at 117 dexterity. Probably the end game version is going to have around about 140. But if you're at 100 plus, you can be super happy about your end game build. Another question I got quite a lot is, why am I not using a bow? And that's mostly because you don't need to in order to cast Ballista. It seems weird, but that's just how it is. And I wanted to use Cradle of the Erased, which gives you a ton of extra block chance and damage reduction. Also more on that when we go for the gear. Once again, ballistas are minions and they don't scale with our stats unless it states. So currently I have Perfect Aim, which converts our critical strike chance and our critical strike multiplier to the ballista's minion crit, right? Basically. So that's all it does. Without this, every sort of increased critical strike chance does not work, whether it's with Peak of the Mountain or anything like that. Now, shared enhancement is also super important once you actually want to go for Morning Frost. I have not done that yet, but I will right now because I got some new upgrades. But this flat damage to attacks doesn't do anything if you don't have 3 points into Ballista. And in order to get 3 points here, you will need one of two things. Either you need an Apogee, which I just upgraded to, and I'm now probably going to equip, which gives you plus free level, which means that you're going to spec 1 point here in Frigid Barrage, so it's actually a cold skill. Now you get freeze, and now you get +3 from the weapon itself, right? And now you have 2 skill points left, and those skill points you put into shared enhancements. That's it. Or, if you don't have that, you need +2 to Ballista on your relic, which I currently don't have. I'm still farming for it. Those shards are pretty damn rare. Now, another question I got a lot is, what weapon are we actually looking for? Until you have a Cradle, you can definitely go with Bow and Quiver. Once you get the shield, whether you farm it yourself or you just drop it randomly, it is a very common drop, by the way. Cradle is just incredible. Once you get it, you want to get some kind of one-hander, or while you have a Bow and Quiver on, you can already look out for one-handers so that once you drop a Cradle, you're ready. Or if you're on trade, you just buy it. It's super easy, right? But in general, that is what you do. Now, in terms of one-handers, Bow we already talked about in the last video, but in terms of one-handers, what you're looking for is any sort of minion bow damage. Since you, at this point, won't have Morning Frost yet, or you won't have the Apogee to use Morning Frost yet, you're going to want all the flat damage you can get. There's also a stat for minion penetration, which is very strong. You have to look into what version you're currently at. If you're still Fire, like I am currently, then you need Fire Pen, and if you're already converted to Frigid Barrage, you need Cold Pen. But these two stats are the most premium ones. hybrid minion bow minion spell and hybrid minion bow minion melee. And you can get that on an axe. And axe also has one good base type, which is the eagle wing. It has base crit and movement speed. Both are really strong. The base crit, once again, does get converted with your ballista once you have 4 points in perfect aim. But there's also other bases like Chris, for example, which is a dagger base, and there's also a scepter with minion damage. So that's all you have to look out for. And there's even some other daggers that have base crit. Base crit, minion damage, movement speed, crit multiplier is also really strong, whatever you want. Yeah, there's also crit multi katana, right? I think it's called. So those are incredibly strong until you get an apogee with the minion mod and a Morning Frost. I currently only have a Morning Frost with no LP. I might farm for it before I swap, but we'll see. As for the rest of the gear, let's take a look. So leather mask is obviously trash. You want a falconer mask, gives you dexterity in the implicit, but I got a tier 7 dexterity drop right here, and it had decent other mods. So I was like, okay, I'll keep it. But this is, I mean, it's not great, but it will have to do for now. We have like no armor from this helmet. It's whatever. It's something we have for now, right? All you're looking for, once again, dexterity, health, and you're gonna be good. Our bone amulet is also absolute dog shit. Bone amulet is a good base, but the mana is just complete overkill. At this point, we farmed the blessing and we have like 300 mana. It's actually way too much. I'd rather have anything else than this. What you want here is just health. Maybe mana regen helps a lot more. Definitely not this. Maybe some minion damage. But yeah, that's gonna depend on your setup. Amulet is not that strong at this point. And now you can also go for a death rattle. I personally wouldn't really go for it, but it isn't terrible. I think I found one earlier. So if you have this amulet, it gives you a little bit of minion crit multi, a little bit of health on minion def, intelligence. It's not great, but it will do. However, capping your resistance once you have Morning Frost on with an amulet like this is going to be basically impossible, just so you know. Cradle of the Erased is completely ridiculous. Now, two things I want to note though. The first one is if you don't care about being tanky at all, if you don't mind dying here or there, or if you're not in high corruption yet, that doesn't mean you have to use it. If you feel comfortable with your current tankiness, that's totally fine. I like being like a little bit more tanky, especially in a build that doesn't have as much inherent defenses. But that's the first thing I wanted to say. So you don't have to do it, obviously. It doesn't have like any damage or something like that. It's just cozy. The second thing is, as I said in the original video, very important. Once you have a shield, do not spec more than 4 points here. You do not want to convert your block chance. Your block chance is incredible. You have so much block effectiveness from that shield. You don't want to completely lose it. So just make sure you don't spec more than 4 points in here. We already talked about the weapon. Eagle Wing, very strong. Chris is strong, Katana, and all and so forth. Apogee, this is only a tier 6 LP. I didn't want to farm forever, so I just slammed on a tier 6 and I got lucky. So that's pretty cool. As for our belt, we have the double res version, the poison cold res. It's just so goddamn strong to fix your resistances. This belt is absolute garbage. It basically has a mana regen and critical strike avoidance. And the other one's completely useless. Don't do anything. So my belt is trash. I would want double health here. I would be on like, I don't know, like 2,400 health right now. So yeah, belt I will have to at some point get a little bit of a better one. The first ring is actually crazy good. So what I did here is I sealed the fire res, which is a tier 4, so I could get another affix on here. It is tier 6 dexterity and then tier 5 crit chance, tier 5 health, and only a tier 4 critical strike avoidance. I think actually at this point I can level it up. It was just a problem earlier. Yes, I actually can. Okay, so that is crazy. So once again, do not forget that critical strike avoidance on your gear is not just helping you survive crits. Even when you go over 100, it will still give you critical multiplier because of this 5-point bonus right here. So yeah, this ring, completely insane. This is actually going to be something I'm going to be carrying for a while now. This ring is pretty much dog shit. It's dexterity, a bad base, and like nothing else. Talking about trash, these are my gloves. Bad implicit, because it's a low roll. Dexterity, I guess, not even perfectly divined. It's a complete disaster. So these gloves are a complete disaster. Tier 2, tier 1, tier 4. But it is what it is, right? Once I find better ones, I'll upgrade. My boots are just made. These are pretty average, I would say. A sealed affix with armor, with the Glyph of Despair. Hybrid health, only tier 3, unfortunately. But then tier 5 movement speed, tier 5 dexterity, critical strike avoidance. Obviously, I'm going to try to swap to Morning Frost as soon as I can. Still trying to get 1 LP on Morning Frost to hit either movement speed or dexterity. And then we're going to be ready. As for relic, I actually used a normal relic with dexterity and stuff like that. And that is probably the way for most of you guys. You want like dexterity, minion damage, +2 to Ballista if you can. That would be the dream. And then in the suffixes, health or resistance, whatever you need. Malvern's is pretty rare as a drop. It's actually not that impressive. The implicit is kind of trash. It does almost nothing. But it has minion damage. It has okay minion crit. A little bit of dexterity. It's not great, but it's going to be okay for now. I'm probably going to try to get something on the legendary potential. But yeah. Malvern's is pretty hard to roll well because the crit you have to hit the dexterity, and you have to hit the legendary potential, and it's a rare drop, so I wouldn't really think about it too much. And as for idols, I mean, I have 2 of these bow physical damage for Ballista idols, which I'm going to replace once I have Morning Frost, because at that point I have so much flat damage. But yeah, there's nothing really here. I have, this is the only really good idol I have with 5% health, 6% res. Otherwise, I'm literally just filling out res. I mean, these are complete garbage idols. I mean, this is, yeah, it's ridiculously bad. Definitely going to readjust that. Probably going to try and target farm for some idols. Currently, my filter is also not really adjusted for them. I'm just hovering over every single one of them. But yeah, then as for blessings, I got the Grand Light of the Moon, which is 80 mana, goes up to 90. Might farm that later. Unique drop rate, I'll have to refarm that. Health I got here. I'd probably prefer the Crit Strike multi, but I didn't quite get there yet. Critical Strike avoidance here is not perfect. I would want the all resistance. Minion damage is like okay, but as I said in the earlier video, there's better. Now, one thing I will add is I said that to get armor in the first video. I actually think once you have Cradle, getting block chance and block effectiveness will actually be better. And if you're not running Cradle, don't get that at all. As for skills, I don't think I've changed absolutely anything here. There's like a point you guys can find, then sure. But yeah, I was basically exactly as I said. As for filters, I will link once again my most updated filter down below, but you have to realize that this is my current filter. We already filtered out a lot of stuff. I'm already at level 91 at this point. So obviously, yeah, my item drops are getting better and better, just so you know. And also something you just have to understand is if you don't want to learn how to make a filter yourself, you're always going to be at a disadvantage because there's always going to be stuff in here that I prefer that you might not. And that is just your loss, honestly. That's just a problem. You have to, for example, look up the max roll guide on how to make loot filters. I know it's annoying, right? You have to put in like a half an hour to learn how this works. It's a little bit annoying. But I tell you, it's so much easier to do it yourself, have it under control. Now, you already saw the intro, but just for completionist sake, I'll show you a little corruption right now. Right here, I'm on 153 corruption. Let's get some exalted helmets right here. Currently just progressing, farming up some gear. Put myself to the left side right here. And it is incredible. I mean, the AoE is basically all screen. So all you do, so here is why I'm actually speccing into some mana and some mana regen. Usually you would have to puncture, but on this build, you really don't have to. I'll also show you my damage against the mage right here. So you can see a little bit of single target damage. We wait for it to spawn. We put down our ballistas, and it is dead, right? That's what happens. Let's see if we find something good. Nope. Usually when you're recording, you have more chance to drop stuff because then you have a hype moment or something. Just gonna hover over this. Obviously, my filter needs a lot of work right now, but it is what it is. So I think we have to kill stuff to locate something. Yeah, whatever. We're basically just throwing down ballistas, and everything on the screen dies. Currently, I'm not cold conversion. I don't even know what happened. I had conquered the echo, right? Something died, and we're good now. All right, get out of here. Let's see if we find something good. I think you get the gist. Now, against bosses, what you first want to do is you want to put down your smoke bomb, because that means that enemies start to get armor shred, which is very strong. In this game, armor is not just against physical damage, it's against everything. It is basically very important to get armor shred. So you put down your smoke bomb next to the boss. It's going to grow a little bit just so it's easier to target, right? And while it's in there, you're going to start placing your ballistas. You're just going to spam. You see my mana? You're going to absolutely spam. And once you're out, right, you're going to reposition and you're going to start puncturing a little bit, right? You're going to do this. You're going to do that, right? And then your mana is going to fill up really quickly if you're actually hitting something. Since you're melee, you have to be melee. So that's also why being shield is nice. But if you're still using a bow, you can do that from range very safely. And against bosses, do not forget to use your Falcon Strike at the end because you have 16% call with Bird of Prey, which is very easy to use because in this game, enemies actually have a percentage health thing, at least bosses do. Now, a lot of people have been asking me about Bina's build as well that I shouted out last time and why I am personally not going Explosive Trap. It is simply, as you just saw in the showcase, it is just so cozy, right? If you're running Explosive Trap, you actually have to hit enemies in order to explode stuff, and it has way more delay. Now, that being said, Explosive Trap does get better at some point with really good gear. What you need is exalted rings that are just insane. So if you, for example, look at Bina's rings right here, he's missing dexterity on both of his rings still, right? Which is a big deal. It's even like, sure, throwing attack speed is important, but you have to be able to kind of get there without having to sacrifice your dexterity. So that is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that end game transition, and I'm currently saving items to be able to do that maybe in 2 to 3 days. And I will put out a full build guide, like a full rundown, I don't know, 40 minutes or so, where I go over every single detail once I actually know the build, right? Like, this is not Power of Exile. I'm not an expert yet, so I have to play every build kind of by chance. I have to first try it out, and then I kind of give you the info. But if you want to do this, if you can actually pull this off before I can, certainly go for it. Also, if you think the explosive trap playstyle is better, that's totally fine, right? For me, what you're sacrificing is clear. Clear is so much better on the self-cast version because you don't have to like gamble around that enemies are actually stepping over it and whatnot. But against bosses, the explosive trap version clearly wins out. So if I was you, I would definitely look at what Bina is doing as well. He even has some tech against bosses. For example, the Foot of the Mountain, right? This one gives you minus mana per stack of mountain endurance. So if you're just standing still and spamming, that is also incredible for explosive trap. So he definitely has some cool tech in there and some really good info as well. I'll link it in the description once again. Now, one more thing I want to talk about is the factions. These get unlocked in the Divine Era in Mayelka. Down here, once you are at the Mayelka Upper District, you will get a side... It's not a side quest, actually. It's part of the main quest. This is Chapter 9. And then you will get into the Observatory. And in the Observatory, I can't TP right now because it takes me forever. The servers are crazy right now. But in there, you basically visit the Circle of Fortune. And if you are trade, then it's called differently. I don't know. I'm not in trade. But in general, one important thing is actually spend your favor for these prophecies. Once you're in there, you'll know what I mean. Spend them. I have not spent them forever, and I didn't realize, hovering over this, you're not just gaining experience by killing enemies. You're also gaining a ton of experience by actually buying these prophecies. So don't be like me. Do that as soon as possible. Whenever you have favor, spend it. But yeah, that's about it. I have progressed through the monos. We're now doing empowered ones. We're pushing corruption a little bit to get our items a little bit faster. I still have some blessings to farm, right? For example, these ones are pretty damn bad right here. This one I want to get from 5 to 8%, which is a pretty damn big deal. After that, I'm gonna farm for a Peak of the Mountain to replace my current helmet with, and then hopefully also slam this helmet on it, and maybe I get the 14x. But yeah, in general, I hope you guys are having a blast. You can also always ask me questions over on twitch.tv/Palsteron whenever I'm live. Currently not really sleeping all that much, so there's a good chance you can catch me over there. And yeah, with that being said, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.